In China specifically, how widespread is the practice of forced organ harvesting?
We can assume that forced organ harvesting is taking place in all over China. The main goal of this practice is to eradicate a group of Falun Gong practitioners.
We call on the PRC to immediately cease its campaign against Falun Gong practitioners.
What does forced organ harvesting look like?
Killing of people for the purpose to harvest their organs while they are still alive. A large scope of professions and people from the West are being pulled into this scheme and unknowingly or knowingly becoming accomplices. China can refer to prisoners of conscience as a livestock of organs, as a living pool of organ donors. In other countries, this is not the practice.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. You might have heard of the issue of forced organ harvesting. Now, this is a big issue in China under the Chinese Communist Party, but actually this impacts just about every country in the world to some extent. Here to talk with us about this and why it matters is Torsten Trey. He's with Doctors Against Forced Organ Harvesting. And Torsten, it's a real pleasure having you on Crossroads.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Torsten, we know that this practice is happening in China. We know the Chinese Communist Party has been harvesting the organs of prisoners of conscience. I'm hoping you can, in this interview, really go into this and we can talk about this and also how it impacts other countries as well. But in China specifically, how widespread is the practice of forced organ harvesting?
We can assume that forced organ harvesting is taking place in all over China. The forced organ harvesting is connected to detention camps where prisoners of conscience are held. Those detention camps are also spread all over the country. We have seen photos from an airport, for example, in Xinjiang in the northwest, where signs were saying an express line for organ transports. And this is very unusual because that sign, that photo was in a city with 500,000 people. It is unlikely a small town like this has such a traffic of organs that it would require a sign for an express line. It is rather an indication that despite the small area, the flux of organs is much larger than one would expect for that region. So we can be sure that this is taking place all over China because it is organized by the state, and the state has certain goals, for example, to involve different layers of the society and people from different areas into this whole scheme. So it is the interest of the Chinese government to get all the different areas and regions involved to sustain this machinery.
So this is kind of like genocide for profit, essentially. They found a way to make profit off of genocide. Is this accurate?
Yes, there are different layers involved. One layer is the main layer. The main goal of this practice is to eradicate a group that is ostracized by the CCP. It is framed as enemy of the state. It is the part of the prisoners of conscience. It's a group of Falun Gong practitioners, which is persecuted since 1999. Since the Tiananmen massacre, China has a big problem to eradicate people that are ostracized or people that the CCP wants to eradicate. Since the Tiananmen massacre, the CCP knows that they cannot simply go out and in public eradicate people in a large scale because the response from the international community can be too strong for the CCP to handle. So they deceive the international community by toning it down, making it a slow, continuous process, which we, in a previous article, described as a cold genocide. The purpose is to eradicate a certain group that is ostracized by the CCP.
You mentioned Falun Gong or Falun Dafa as being one of the main targets. Is it limited to Falun Gong, or are they the biggest group, or what's the scale roughly, and are other groups targeted by it?
Yeah, I believe what happened is that in 1999, the practice was limited to, the procurement of organs was limited to taking organs from executed prisoners. But there was a limit to it because the crime rate does not suddenly increase, and you cannot rely on this pool of people to harvest organs on time. So what happened is that they took this concept of taking organs from executed prisoners and just shifted it to the group of Falun Gong practitioners. That happened in the beginning. So after then of course they increased the whole concept of forced organ harvesting. They established a transplant industry. Once it was established, they also then established or tried to get other groups also involved in this machinery, and then expanded to other groups, other minorities as organ source. But Falun Gong is the primary victim and by far the largest group of victims.
You mentioned they regard Falun Gong practitioners as enemies of the state. What is the reason for this? Could you explain to us?
Well, if I say this, then it's very important to say that the perception of enemy is only one-sided. It is coming from the CCP. It's not coming from the Falun Gong group. It's coming from the CCP. The CCP has a certain way of handling things. It is deceiving enemies. It is deceiving adversaries. It is following deception and lies, and also uses violence to achieve its goal. All of this is contrary to the principles of Falun Gong, which it follows compassion, tolerance, truthfulness. So the CCP must have perceived Falun Gong as a threat. However, the threat is not coming from Falun Gong. It is a perceived threat by the CCP.
In terms of what organ harvesting looks like, I think most people, they think organ harvesting, they imagine a person who's brain dead. They take their organs out for the organ transplant, and that's it. The person is killed technically, but typically it's done with people who are brain dead. What does forced organ harvesting look like?
In our upcoming World Summit, we have several speakers who will address this topic in detail. And I can give you a little outlook on this. There are different layers of how and at what point the death of the person is taking place, and also the organ harvesting itself. The forced organ harvesting, as we understand, is the killing of people not as part of a court sentence or a death sentence, but is the killing of people for the purpose to harvest their organs while they are still alive.
So these are people who are still alive, taken, and while they're still blinking and breathing. Are they unconscious? Are they cognizant? Do they give them medications to numb the pain? How does this work?
Yeah, so in the past, the organ harvesting took place in the fields, in the scope of executions. But the problem is that there's a time delay from the execution to the moment when the organs are harvested. So this has been, in a way, maximized by shifting the executions from the field to the operation room. So in the operation room, you have the ability to apply medications that for example, stops the heartbeat, or the perfusion where you can actually time the moment when you actually remove the organ that you want to transplant.
Well, folks, 2 months on now, and we are still totally demonetized by YouTube. But given the situation where we have to censor ourselves if we want to really stay on this platform and make it work, we've decided on something else, which is this. We've launched a new platform called Epoch TV, EPOCH TV.com. And through this, we're able to publish uncensored content. News that can criticize anything we'd like, news that can talk about anything we'd like, news that can give you real information from any part of the world about any topic without having to worry whether individuals will censor it. And in this current environment where information is being controlled, where narratives are being controlled, and where anyone who steps outside the boundaries of what is the accepted narrative by the fact checkers, quote unquote, by different big tech organizations, by media organizations, and so on. This is something that we believe is needed for the modern political environment, where people should be able to call things out. People should be able to question things. This is the basis of the Fourth Estate in America. The belief, again, that media should be able to hold government power in check, and that media should be able to inform the public about the issues they should be informed about, because that is the basis of our election system. An informed public making informed decisions. If you control this system of information, you control the political system. And folks, being a media organization, we can't stand for that. And so again, we have created an uncensored platform, Epoch TV. And anyone who wants to support Crossroads or support our broader mission of bringing real news, uncensored news, that's not afraid to stand up for what matters, please check out our website, epochtv.com, epochtv.com. Check out the link below. And folks, please support us there.